Hello Age of Wonderites, welcome to the Warlord edition of the How to Play series. So we're starting off with the combat spells. Now Last Stand is a unit enchantment and it'll give that unit +2 defense, First Strike and Polearm. And First Strike will give your ability the chance to attack the enemy first in retaliations, and Polearm gives you increased damage against cavalry and flying units at the cost of 7 mana. Lion's Courage will give your unit +3 strength, overwhelm and strong will for 8 mana. Overwhelm is increased damage against shielded units and I also think pikemen, and strong will stops your unit from being mind controlled. Berserk, if it fails, the unit is slightly hindered and that's -25% movement points for a turn, but a berserk enemy will attack the nearest unit, whether it's his own or yours, for 2 turns. And also, if it is one of the enemy's units, they will look at that berserk unit as one of their own and they will not retaliate. And that's really good because it means the enemy doesn't have a chance of killing the berserk unit before the berserk has been used up for those 2 turns. So it's nice and handy. All for the cost of 10 mana. Shout of Intimidation. If it fails, the enemy is hindered. If it passes, they are panicked. And panicked units, if it is an attacking unit, will try to flee the battlefield, and if it's one of the defending units, he'll just try to run to the edge of the map. And if it fails, they are hindered and they suffer -50% movement points for a turn. All for the cost of 10 mana. Phoenix Warrior is really nice. Gives that unit Resurgence, and Resurgence means if you win the fight, they'll come back at the end of the combat with 35% of their health. Killing Spree. This so when an enemy kills a unit, they will gain an additional action point and they can move 1 extra hex. So we say this is our unit and all of these are enemy units with 1 health. We buff this guy with Killing Spree. He attacks him and kills him, so he's now got an extra action point and a movement point. So he moves in, attacks him, kills him, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. That can happen multiple times in a fight. So again, quite situational, but if you place it up, if you set up the map well, it's completely possible. Also 5 mana. Steadfast Ward. The target friendly unit gains Steadfast for 3 turns, and Steadfast will stop that unit's health from dropping below 1. Basically it keeps him alive for 3 turns. It's a very strong ability. And that's for the very low cost of 10 mana. This is a really good ability. Bloodbath is a battlefield-wide enchantment, and all your units will gain +5 physical damage, and all for the cost of 30 mana. Now we'll go on to global spells. And Authority of the Sword is a city enchantment, and the city you give it to will gain +1 domain radius, so that will increase by 1 hex, for the cost of 40 mana and 6 upkeep. Raised Militia is the closest thing that the Warlord has to a scout. It's technically not a scout though, because it will just give you whatever city you choose, it will spawn on a regular unit based on that city. So a goblin irregular or a human irregular. The regular units are all slightly varied based on the city, but you will lose 100 population from that city too. So that's all the people making up that wee army, and that's at the cost of 30 mana. Dread Siege is very nice. Basically, the city you give it to, the enemy city, will suffer -500 happiness, and that brings them very close to Rebellion, for the cost of 80 mana and 9 upkeep. Very low upkeep, but pretty high mana cost. Death March is a very interesting ability. It can only be cast on the strategic map, and you give it to a friendly unit and they will gain extra movement points that equals their maximum movement points. So they'll gain, let's say they have 36, you cast it on a unit with 20 movement points, then it'll go up by another 36 to 56. But the affected unit will lose 50% of their current health, so it's quite a huge health loss. And the movement capabilities of the units in combat are not affected. For the cost of 20 mana, so it's a very interesting ability. Inspire Loyalty is a world enchantment, and it only affects your leader and your hero. Basically, If your hero is leading the army with Inspire Loyalty, then Every unit in that army will gain volunteer, and volunteer units only cost 50% of their normal upkeep, and that's quite a high upkeep of 15 per turn, but only 100 mana for a very nice ability. Basically, all your units are going to cost half. Really, really nice. The draft, plus 200 mana for all of your units, and they will not desert no matter how low the morale goes. Very high mana cost here, 160 and 18 per turn, but it's a very good effect. Hero Slaying. This one gives all your units the Hero Slaying ability, and that's plus 3 damage against heroes. Very high upkeep per turn of 24, but it's a huge ability, and taking down heroes can change games. Conquerors Beast is a world enchantment, and it makes the enemy in domain, enemy at the gates, penalties twice as effective. These are normally 200, and basically enemy in domain is whenever an enemy is inside your domain, and enemy at the gates is whenever they are on one of the hexes that are surrounding the center hex of a city. And you can have both of these active at a time, but you can't have multiple versions of these, so only one of them active at a time, but you can have both. They're normally minus 200 each, but this will make them minus 400, so you're talking minus 800 for just having one guy standing next to your city, no matter how big the army is. That's huge. But it also makes all of your units cost minus 25% upkeep, so couple that with the Inspire Loyalty, yes, and perhaps say the Goblin race, who naturally cost much less than all the other races, and then you're just pumping out units at no cost at all. 240 mana and 24 mana upkeep, so quite expensive but more than worth it. Global Assault is just what makes the Warlord pure terrifying. So all units gain charge and first strike. Charge means that if they move more than 4 hexes to reach the target, they'll deal some extra damage. First strike we've went through, but basically all your units, including ones you currently have and ones that you produce from this point onwards, will be gold ranked. That's level 4 basically, not counting heroes and leaders, but basically your entire army, every unit becomes a monster. And also note that it's a huge cost, 600 mana and 64 per turn, and it's dispellable. You can cast Disjunction to cancel the spell, but even in the time between that it's taken them to cast Disjunction, you're going to gain your entire army that you currently have will all go up to gold rank, and they'll all gain these 2 stats, so it's just amazing. Okay, Empire upgrades. Now we're going to skip all of the warfares because they just increase your casting points, and we'll also skip the units because I'll go through them individually. So Training Regimen reduces the gold cost of archers, cavalry, infantry, irregular and pikemen units by 20%. That affects your entire empire. War Effort, all your cities gain plus 10 gold, which is very nice. Let's see, Garrison's Honor. This is a really interesting ability. So units inside a city that has a wall will gain plus 2 defense. Units inside a city that doesn't have a wall gain plus 3 strength. So you can go for your Spartans or your what's the Greek city with the wall? Athens? Something like that. Tell me down in the comment section below if anyone knows. I could Google it, but I'd leave it up to you guys. You'll probably know it better than me. Anyway, let's see. Warrior culture. So our empire doesn't suffer from enemy in domain or enemy at the gates, and also migration time is cut in half by 50%. Martial arts training is a very, very nice ability. So our archers, cavalry, infantry, pikemen gain the martial arts ability, which is plus 5 defense against attacks of opportunity and retaliation. So also, again, this ties in with being a very sort of tactical player and setting up the battlefield. But again, just retaliations alone makes this just a fantastic ability. Warrior culture. So our empire suffers no happiness penalties from enemy in domain, enemy at the gates. I think I just went through this. Yeah. Conqueror. There we go. Oh, I love this. All of our units just gain plus 50% XP for killing enemy units. It kind of doesn't synergize extremely well with Global Assault, but again, the cost in this is huge, so you're not going to be casting it every time it's dispelled, and this is an empire upgrade. so it always works on all your units all the time. Thoroughbred mounts. All your cavalry receives plus 15 hit points. I think that's done. Yes, so now we'll go through the Warlord units. I do think there's none that are belong to a race. They're all producible. Yes, good. So we'll use humans because they have the best base stats for comparison's sake. Now the human berserker is a very interesting unit. It is mind control immunity, so you can't cast things like berserk on this unit. They're a mariner, so they do not suffer the 4 strength penalty for going on water. Infantry, so they can climb walls. They walk, it's always interesting to know. But they've overwhelmed, so plus 3 damage against pikemen and shielded units. 13 damage, which is quite nice, but 52 health, 11 defense. That's brilliant for a tier 2 unit, and 9 resistance. The monster hunter, so you got 50 health, 12 defense, 10 resistance. Melee strike, shoot your light crossbow. We also have monster slayer, animal, dragon, and giant and fey slayer. So you're talking about a ton of damage, plus 3 damage against all these different types of creatures. You can swim, so you can go on water. Mariners, so they don't take that 4 strength for going on the water. They're armored, so their defense is actually plus 2. And they have immunity to certain magical elements. That's sort of like you can imagine against dragons. You need all the different types of dragons and fairies. They have these immunities. Mounted archer. Again, always think of the warlord as this guy who's conquered multiple nations and he's taken, you know, the mounted archers from the steppes and things, from the steeps. So 50 health, which is quite big for a cavalry unit. 10 defense, 9 resistance. They can shoot a bow, and they've melee strike, walking, mariner, and mounted. So you get your extra movement points. Phalanx is a cool unit. These are your Spartans. 65 health, 12 defense, 11 resistance, 16 attack. Inflict crippling wounds, so anyone who attacks these guys has 12 less movement points. First strike, so if you attack these guys, they will attack you first. Polearm, so plus 5 damage against cavalry and flying units. Armored, so they've actually got plus 2 armor there, and shield. If you attack them from the front, they have another plus 2, so that's 16 in total if you attack from the front. Warbreed is the big giant ogre. You're talking 80 defense, 80 health, 12 defense, 10 resistance, and 20 damage. They can also attack walls, and they are a monster, so they are affected by things like Monster Slayer. Manticore Rider is your high tier unit. 85 health, 13 defense, 12 resistance, 23 damage. Immune to mind control. You got that crippling wounds again. They've charge and they can fly. So flying alone makes them worthwhile. You go up, land behind a unit, get in a flanking attack. So good. So that's just done for warlords, guys. Next, I'm going to go through all the different race units. So basically, we'll start off on High Elves. Yep, so we'll see you guys in the next video.